Hello everyone, welcome to Jolly Molly TV. Today we are going to finish up this block section of the Kimberbell Candy Corn Quilt Shop. There's only one thing left we have to do before we can start sewing this whole project together. Alright? And when I mean that, I mean this inner part here. The inside of where the orange border is, that's where we're working. We have one thing left to do, and that are all and that is all these border blocks. We have little blocks here, we have a large one here, some little ones here. All these little blocks that kind of fill in the spaces between these blocks, those are called border blocks. And they don't really address what I'm going to show you today in the instructions, but I want to walk you through how to pull these fabrics in, add them onto the hoop, and we're going to quilt them because we want these blocks to be quilted like the other blocks are. If you've been following along with me in this project, I've been doing the quilt as you go before we do the applique on each block. Well, since we've been doing that, these, if we just take them the way they are, they're not quilted. So I'm going to walk you through how to do all these small ones, put them in the hoop, quilt them. Then we're going to do the middle size, put them in the hoop, quilt them. The strips, put them in the hoop, quilt them. So basically when we're all done at the end of this video, we're going to have all of these little accessory border blocks quilted. So we will have one continuous look going through the entire main body of this quilt. Isn't that going to be fun? So that's what we're going to work on today. So go ahead and grab your bags or plastic pouch system that's labeled border blocks, and let's go over to the machine and let's get started. All right, we are at the machine and ready to work on these border blocks for candy corn. Now, I have pulled all of my border fabrics out of the folders. At this point, it doesn't matter what border block section it's going to go in. We're going to know that when we get down to the finish line. So I just wanted to pull out all of my border block pieces. So I can see I've got 2.5-inch squares, and then I have these slightly larger squares, longer squares, and then the big final piece. Now they don't address this in the instructions because we have been doing the quilting as we go, and they don't cover the quilting in the main Kimberbell instructions. So what we're going to do, because we've been quilting the fabric, then putting the applique on top, we are going to quilt these blocks just like we did everything else. There's just not going to be any applique on top of it, and we're going to be doing this in bulk on the Dream machine here. I'm going to show you how to do it. So hopefully you have a machine that can do something similar to this. If not, this is a good kind of a technique just to learn and to watch and know that there's a possibility out there to quilt these in the machine in multiples at the same time. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to work on these 2.5-inch squares. All right. And this is going to be a 2-inch quilting design, which I know Kimberbell has in our quilting pack. So let's go to the screen and take a look at how we're going to add this to the embroidery machine in multiples so we can stitch more than one of these out at the same time. I've gone ahead and put the 8x12 hoop on the machine for this, and I filled it with a piece of the poly no-show mesh. It's kind of important to have this actually on the machine at this point because the machine has a sensor, and it will tell us if we go beyond the boundaries of what's allowed for the hoop that's attached. And I'll show you what I mean here in a second. All right, so let's go to the screen. Just for reference, I have a Brother Dream machine, the first one. So if you have something similar, you can follow along. I'm going to go to embroidery, and I have everything on my flash drive. And I'm going to go to my candy corn subfolder, and I'm going to go to the quilting. Remember, for these border blocks, we're only quilting. We are not going to be doing any applique on them. We just want to stitch out these quilting designs. And we're going to start by doing the 2.5 inch squares. And I think I have 9 of them here. So we have a bunch. So let's see if we can add, let's see how many we can add to this one hoop. So with a 2.5 inch square, I want to do this really cute candy corn flower design. That is a 2 inch square. Isn't that cute? All right, we're going to do this as many times as we can on this hoop. So I'm going to click set. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move this. Just with my stylus, putting it down, touching the screen, I'm going to move it. Now, I don't know exactly where it's going to land. So I'm going to do a little cheat sheet method. I'm going to click embroidery, pretend that's where I want to put it, and the machine will move the hoop to where it needs to be. And I can also do this little kind of a page with a down arrow, and I can tell it, I want you to go to the very top of where this is, and it will show me, I'm not quite at the top. So then I can actually use the stylus and put my down, and I can move it. Hear that? It's moving the hoop. Oh, too far. See, too far. So I can move it right there. Then I can go, okay, go to the left, go to the top, and I can see on my hoop cam, the machine has gone all the way up here to the top. That's as far as I can go to maximize my stabilizer. And I'm going to say, okay, go to my left. That's where the left of the design is going to start. That's perfect. Okay, let's go back to the screen. So that's where I know this first one can go. Click OK. And then I'm going to click return because I want to go back and I want to keep adding designs. Okay, I'm going to add flash drive, candy corn, quilting. I'm going to pick another 2x2 design. Bring a second one in and look at that. Again, now I can do this. I can move it up to here, right to there, and I'm going to do what I call the cheat sheet method. I go to embroidery, and I go to this page, and I say, take me to the top. And that makes sure that I have both of them to the top. Now, if I need to move them here, it will move both. Hear that? So I'm literally at the top, but I'm one click away from the top. I like to leave a little bit of room. Then I click OK, and then I go to return. So I go back to the add method. That little cheat sheet method, as I call it, takes me into the embroidery module where I can actually see where the design is going to land. And then I return to go back into the edit mode where I'm adding designs. All right. That way I can see where I'm going. Otherwise, I'm kind of driving blind. And I don't want to do that. So let's add another 2x2 design. And now I'm going to add it. And I'm just going to go right over here. I'm going to leave a little bit of room in between the two. Okay. We're going to have kind of a fabric overlap a little bit. If it gets in the way, we can just, move it later as we're stitching. Because I want to try to fit as many as I can. But I don't want them literally right on top of each other. I want a little bit of room in between so I can cut the batting and allow for the fabric to be there. So let's add another design. Same thing, another 2x2. Quilting 2x2. Click set, brings it in. And once I see how many I can fit, I can make the space in between a little bit bigger if I need to. All right, add another one. And we just keep going back and see how many we can add here. All right, let's do a little bit right there. Add another one. Getting the hang of this? You got this. 2x2. Bring it in. All right. I don't have to do my little cheat sheet method because I'm not outside that square yet. But this next time I will. Candy corn, quilting, another 2x2. I'm going to bring it down because now I'm not quite sure where I am. Not quite sure. So I'm going to click embroidery like I'm done. Do my little page map, and I want to go all the way down to the bottom. All right, it looks like I got a little bit of room, and I'm going to grab it. And that looks good right there. And I'm going to go to the top. Make sure my top is still good. It is. Click OK. Go back to the edit mode so I can add one more design. And we should be good to fit 8 on here. Can you imagine doing 8 in one hooping? Hello. Okay, and then come down here. And edit one more time. All right, now, the moment of truth is when you hit embroidery, if it came up with an error message at that point in time, it would be that I exceeded the hoop. Let me see if I can force it to do that. Let's just do this. See, it's saying change to a larger embroidery frame. So, oops, I boo-booed. Let me move it up a little bit. Now, see, change to a larger embroidery frame. So it's saying, yeah, I'm smarter than you. And I know that that's not going to fit on the 8x12. But now it will. Okay? So, yeah, they're not exactly lined up perfect, but it doesn't matter because these will be stitched out and then we'll all be separated at the end. So just because this one's not lined up perfectly, that's okay. We'll live. Now, there's one more thing I want to do. Because we're doing 8 of these in a row, right now the machine's going to walk through the placement line for the batting, the tack down of the batting, the placement line for the fabric, the tack down for the fabric, and it's going to quilt. That's just this one. Then it's going to go to this one and do the same thing. What I'd like it to do is do all of the placement lines first, all of the tack down of the batting second, all of the placement lines for the fabric third, and all of the tack down for the fabric fourth. So to do that, you just click edit, and you look here for these 3 spools. Click on the 3 spools, and right behind you can see the colors have changed. Click edit, and look what it's done. It is now going to do a placement line for the batting for this one, 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 and this one. And then it's going to go to the tack down for the batting for all of them. So you're doing the same step for all 8 at the same time. That is the way we want to do it. Now, we may have to stop the machine in between certain steps. We'll see what it does because we want to have time to switch some color threads in between because we're going to have, say, a green piece of fabric that we want to quilt in green. And the next one could be gray that we want to quilt in gray. So we're going to have color changes between here. But it'll be really nice to have it doing all of the same step at the same time for all 8. All right, so we are actually good. We're good to go. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put white thread in the top of the machine, and we're going to stitch out the placement line for all of the batting. Put white thread up on top. Okay, I've got white thread up on top. Now let's watch it as it stitches out these placement lines. Let's watch what it does. Okay, so now you see what that did. It went one block at a time, but it did not stop in between. It only stops at color changes. What you're going to be prepared to do is as we go further through this, after we tack down the batting and we trim it, you're going to be stopping the machine as it gets to the start of each one. You'll stop it, you'll put the fabric down, etc., and work on it. So you just get used to, you will have to stop after it finishes one item and it moves to the next. You'll be stopping the machine, doing what you need to do, and starting it back up, and then it goes to the next one to stop and start. You will have to be the start and stop, but that's a small price to pay for the ability to be able to do 8 of these on one hooping. Sold. I am there. We can do this, all right? And I'll walk you through each step of the way. So the first thing we're going to do now is we're going to lay down batting. And you're going to be like, what? I got to cut 2.5-inch squares? Nope. I am taking one piece of batting. Pretend it's like a big block. And I'm going to let it tack down each and every one of these little squares. Then I'm going to go to the table and I'm going to trim all around it. This is so much easier than trying to cut tiny pieces of batting and place each one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start it, but I'm not necessarily going to stop it in between. As long as the batting is still flat and everything looks good, I will let it go one by one automatically until we're done. Okay, so if you're using one piece of batting, you don't have to stop it in between as long as the batting is still flat. All right, are you ready? White thread still on top of the machine. Let's tack down the batting. Now, isn't that much easier than doing individual little pieces of batting? I think so too. All right, so let's take the hoop off the machine. Let's take this over to the table. And now I want to trim away the excess batting around the edges. And I want to trim down the middle and then in between each of the squares. I want to cut away that excess batting as well, so there's just little bitty squares of batting left. Okay, let's go to the table and do that. Isn't that cool? Looks like a little checkerboard. All right, so now that we've got all that trimmed up, now we're going to do the placement line for the fabric. So leave white thread up on top, foot down, and let's stitch out the placement lines. You don't have to stop yet. You can let it go continuously at this point. You don't have to stop between blocks yet. So now I've pulled out my 2.5-inch squares and I'm going to sort them by color. Okay, so we got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'll save this one for the next hooping. Okay, so we have 3 of the silver gray bats. We have 2, it's 5, 6, 7, and 8. So 3 of the gray, 2 of the green, 2 of the stripe, and 1 of the purple. So now this is the stage, this is the step that we're going to be stopping the machine as it travels from block to block. Because we're going to be wanting to tack these down in different colors of thread. And then of course we're going to want to quilt these in different colors of thread. So the first thing I'm going to do, since I've separated them in colors, is I'm going to do the 2 that I'm going to be tacking down in white. I'll do that first because I still have white thread on the top of the machine. Then I'll switch and I'll put the silver thread up on top, and we'll tack down the silver bats or the gray bats. Then I'll put green, do the same, and then I'll put purple and do the same. Okay, so now we have the placement lines put down. But as you see, when we put the fabric down, it barely fits within those placement lines. The instructions in the kit told us to cut these blocks exactly to 2.5 inch square so we can sew them in. They did not anticipate us quilting them. Okay, so we're not going to be able to tack these down, and I know I don't have enough fabric in the kit to cut another set of these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quilt these as they are, but I'm not going to do the tack down stitch because it's not going to catch any of this. Pretty sure it's not going to catch anything. If anything, it'll cause a problem with it comes around the edges because it's not going to catch. We're going to skip all of these steps. I'm not going to tack this fabric down. I'm going to go straight to the quilting. There's not a whole lot of quilting, so I don't think the quilting will pull the fabric in too much. So there still should be very close to 2.5 inches. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to click on the plus and minus needle, and I'm going to go forward 8 steps. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There it goes right to the quilting. Okay, so there's not going to be tack down for these fabrics because it will not catch it. So we will make this work. All right, so let's go back to the machine. So now what we're doing is we're just going to put that there. All right, what I'm going to do for these, because it's a little too close for my fingers or even the stylus to be, I'm going to somehow, hey, get a piece of embroidery tape. This is Kimberbell's paper tape. Okay, I just need a small piece. I don't need a lot. And I'm going to tape this down. If it gets caught in the quilting, it'll be fine because it will just come right back up. All right, we're going to do the same thing for the second piece. And make sure my diagonals are in the same direction. And then make sure it fits right in that placement line. Get myself 2 pieces. Tape it up top. And then tape it on the bottom. Again, if this tape gets in the quilting, it's not a big deal because it's paper tape and it will come right out. It'll tear off very easily. All right, so now I'm going to do the quilting here and here, and I'm going to watch it when it comes over and make sure the foot doesn't catch. I'll stop it if I need to at the beginning of here, but definitely stop it when it gets down to the beginning of the second row so I can place the next fabric. All right, so white thread is going to be on top because I'm going to quilt these 2 in white, and let's go. Okay, so I stopped the machine and I put my foot up. This is going to work out fine because the quilting was minor enough. It's a little puckered, but it still looks like it's a full 2.5 inch square. Even if it wasn't, even if it pulled in just a little bit, instead of doing a 1/4 inch seam allowance, when I sew these on, I would use like a scant 1/4 inch. And it'll fit just fine on the block. So we can totally make this work. So see, sometimes things are not perfect. Sometimes the instructions don't account for things. Sometimes we make mistakes. That's okay. The main thing is make it work. And that's what we're doing. All right, so we got this. All right, so now I'm going to do the silver or a gray. I'm going to do those 3 as we're making it work. And then I'm going to put this color thread in the top of the machine. Okay, so I've got the gray or silver thread up on top, and I've gone ahead and placed each one down, and I've put tape on top of each one to keep it in place. So now I'm going to let it stitch the next 3, and then I'm going to stop the machine when it gets to this point. Let's go. Put the foot up. Okay, so now we can go to the next 2, which let's do the green. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to tape these 2 down. Okay, so now I've taped these 2 down, and I also have put lime green thread at the top of the machine. So let's go ahead and stitch out the quilting on the next 2, and then stop it when it gets to the last one. Okay, put the foot up. And now we're going to do one last block. I'm going to put purple thread up on the top of the machine, and I'm going to tape this down so we can quilt the last square here. Okay, you got purple thread up on the top of the machine, and these are taped down. So now let's quilt this last one. Foot down, and away we go. It's done. All right, and don't worry about the fact that these edges are not tucked down. We're going to square these off at the end right around the seam line, and we're going to leave the stabilizer in. So when you sew these blocks in, you'll sew it with the fabric and the stabilizer, and you will never know that these were not tacked down. You see this one here? The paper got underneath the stitches, but it's just super easy. Pull it right away, and bingo. I'll get a pair of tweezers. There's a teeny piece of tape left under there. I'll get some tweezers and pull it out. But look at that. That looks good. That looks really good. And like I said, these will be just fine when we're all done. We'll press them out, and they'll fit perfectly. So we made it work. It wasn't an ideal situation because the instructions told us to cut it differently, not knowing that we were going to quilt them, which is fine because we adapted and we made it work. And that's the main thing. Like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be, per the instructions all the time. If something happens, life gives you lemons, you make lemonade and you make it work. All right. So let's go ahead and let's take this out of the hoop, put another piece of your poly no-show mesh stabilizer in the hoop, and come back to the machine. And now we're going to do the larger border blocks. Okay, so I have hooped another piece of poly no-show mesh stabilizer in my 8x12 hoop, and I've just kind of laid out the fabrics to kind of see what is best going to fit. We have 2 hoopings left, all right? This hooping is going to be these larger pieces, the black, kind of a gray black witch, larger and smaller piece, and then the black webbing, and then this one here. Then that will leave, let me just show you, the final hooping, which the next hooping will do this one and these 2, all right? So that'll make everything fit nicely on the hoop. All right, so with this in mind, this is the layout that I need to incorporate the quilting designs when we add them to the machine. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put the hoop in the machine so it will tell me what my dimension is and if I exceed that spacing. And let's look at this first fabric. This first fabric here, I'm going to turn this around, is, let's see, turn it this way so I can measure it a little bit better. All right, this piece of fabric is 9 inches long by, it needs to be flat, 4.5. 9 inches long by 4.5. Okay, yeah, 9 inches by 4.5. So the first quilting design that we need to add needs to fit 9 by 4.5. So let's go to the screen, and I'm going to look to see what is going to fit a 9 by 4.5. Well, I can't use the 4 by 10 because some of the design will get cut off. So I'm actually going to use a 4 by 8. I think that'll be fine. That'll give it a nice quilting area. It'll fit left to right, and we'll have a little bit left on the top and bottom, but it'll be centered. So I think that'll work perfectly. Okay, so this is the one we're going to use. We're going to set, and then I need to move it. So it is as far up to the left of the hoop as I can get. So now I'm going to do that little cheatsy method where I click embroidery. Oh, larger frame, yeah, because I moved it too high. And go down a little bit again. There we go. All right, so now it's on there. And I want to actually see, yeah, it's way up there. So if I move this even a smidgen, nope, I'm at the top. But I can move it over. That should be good. All right, let's go to the far left. That's perfect. All right, so click OK. Oops. And I'm going to go back and return. So this black one is done. This black one's good. So now, let's go back to the dream. This large one is done. Okay, that one will be the upper left. So now let's look at this one here. Let's look at this one because I want to put this one next to the right of the large one. And this one measures 6.5. And it is 2.5. All right, 2.5 by 6.5. All right, what design fits 2.5 by 6.5? So let's go back to the screen. Here we go. Let's click Add, Flash Drive, Candy Corn, and Quilting. And it was 2.5 by 6.5. We just happen to have a 2 by 6. Perfect fit. Okay, so let's click Set. And now I'm going to click and drag just that design over here to the right. Perfect. Click Add. Back to the flash drive. Back to Candy Corn. Quilting. Okay, so then this one is done. We'll put that one to the side. And now I want it to do this one here. So let's figure out what size this is. And we may not be able to tack these down either, but like I said before, we'll make it work. All right, so 4.5 by 2.5. That's a 4.5 by 2.5. All right, let's go back to the screen. What matches a 4.5 by 2.5? All right, we have here a 2 by 4. So it would be 2, 4.5. So this is the one that we want. Click Set. And I'm going to drag this down to the bottom underneath that one. Then I'm going to click Add. And I'm going to go back and do the same thing. And I know this last one, let's do this one here, is a 2.5 inch square. So that one we know what size. So we're going to do a 2 by 2. Yeah, we won't be able to tack these down either, but that's okay. We're going to make it work. Let's put it right there. And let's click embroidery. It loves it. It didn't tell me to go do a larger hoop. Okay, so we are okay. Again, we won't be able to tack them down, but we'll make it work. All right. Okay, so now I've got white thread on the top of the machine. So, oh, there's one thing we have to do. There's one thing we have to do. You know what that is. We have to change the colors. Click Edit, go to the 3 spools, and now it's changed so all the steps are in the same order. All right? Okay, let's go ahead and put the foot down, and let's stitch out the placement lines for these blocks. Ready? Here we go. Okay, so it did that nicely. So now we're going to put the batting down and attach the batting. Now I'm going to probably have to use 2 pieces. This one is not going to be long enough, but again, we'll make it work. So here we go. This will fit the top 2. And then I have a smaller piece that I can use down below for those. All right, not a problem. Okay, so go ahead and put your batting in place, put your foot down, and let's tack down the batting. Still white thread on the top of the machine. That's another lesson in making things work. My batting wasn't big enough, but I was able to use 2 pieces and line it up. You'll never even know that there's a second piece there. Perfect. All right, so let's take this over to the table. We want to cut away the excess batting from around all the sides and through the middle to separate these pieces. Okay, so those are in place, all trimmed up. Let's leave white thread in the top of the machine, and let's stitch out all the placement lines for the fabric. Okay, so now we're going to place the fabric down, and I'm assuming that it's not going to be tacked down either. It's just going to fit, which is fine. Like I said, we will make it work. I'm not going to stress out about it, and you don't need to either, because it's going to work. We are going to skip these steps right here. So I'm going to go the plus and minus needle because we can't do the tack down of the fabric. So I'm going to go 4 times, skipping so it gets to the quilt stitches. All right, so now let's take a look at the fabrics on the hoop. Worst case, we sew it with a scant 1/4 inch. It will still work. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and tape the fabrics down on each one. I'm going to go ahead and do them all this time. The first 3, I believe I'm going to quilt in all black, because I don't want the spider web to kind of be lost with more white. So I'm going to do black thread on this one. black thread on the spider web. So I'm just laying them all down here, making sure they're secure. They're right in line with the placement lines, and we'll make it work. It's all good. All right. Okay, so we're back on the machine. We've got them all taped down. So I want to put black thread in the top of the machine, and we can start quilting. Okay, so we're going to start quilting, and just watch. You don't have to stop it between this one, and this one if your thread is going to be the same color. Now, if you're using different fabrics, you might need to stop it when it gets to here to change a thread to do this one. Stop it again when it comes to here, change it and do this one, and the same for the last one. So just go ahead and watch it and change threads when you need to. Remember to stop at the beginning of each one if you need to change it, okay? All right, here we go. Foot out. Okay, now I'm going to change color thread to this like a lavender pinky that'll match this, and then we're going to be done with this hoop. You're doing good. Doing good. All right, one more. Oop, I got a loop. Really twisty loop. Let's get that out, and we're ready to stitch. Almost done. Okay, we did it. So we got one more hooping to do. So take the hoop off the machine, take it over to the table, take this off, put another piece of your polynotional mesh stabilizer in here, come back to the machine, we're going to clear the memory, and we're going to set up the last few fabrics. I think we have, let's see, 1, 2, 3 fabrics left to do, and then we'll be done. So now I have a hoop filled with a new piece of the polynotional mesh stabilizer, and I've laid out how the last 3 fabrics are going to be positioned on the hoop, so I have an idea of how it's going to fit. So now we need to figure out the size of the first block, which is a 7.5 by 2.5. 7.5 by 2.5. So let's see what fits on the screen. 7.5 by 2.5. All right, so we're going to clear the memory. So we're going to go home, clear. Okay, start over, go to embroidery, flash drive, and candy corn, and the quilting. And I said it was 7.5, right? Double check it. 7.5 by 2.5. Okay, so the 2s I have are a 2 by 6, a 2 by 8, a 2 by 10. I don't have a 2 by 7.5. So I'm going to go 2 by 6. I would rather have less quilting on it and not have any design cut off. All right, so let's do 2 by 6 on that one. Now I'm going to move this in the upper left. Then I'm going to add Candy corn quilting. The next design, this one at the top here, this one right here, is going to be 6.5 by 2.5. 6.5 by 2.5. So I go back to the screen and I'm going to pick the same size design. 6.5 by 2.5. The 2 by 6 will work again. Click set. I'm going to bring it right over here. Alright, then I'm going to click add. Flash drive, candy corn, quilting. And the last design, this little guy right here, is going to be a 4.5 by 2.5. Yep, 4.5. Okay. So I'm going to go 2 by 4. And click set. And then I'm going to bring this one right down here. Let's go embroidery. It liked it. It fit all on one hoop. So we are good to go. You guys, 3 more and you're done with this. All right. So the first thing I want to do is I want to switch my colors. To go edit, go to the 3 spools and edit, and it put all the steps in the same order. So let's put white thread in the top of the machine. And we're going to stitch out the placement line for these blocks. All right. And let's stitch it out. Okay, so I'm going to put the batting down for the first 2. Then I'm going to trim it and then place a piece of it down below for the 3rd. So I'm just positioning it for the first 2, then I'm going to stop it when it gets to the start of the 3rd. All right, let's tack down the batting. White thread still up on top. I'm going to stop it because I don't want to waste, whoops, press it for that. I don't want to waste a whole nother piece of batting. So I know that this piece here that's going to get trimmed off will fit. So I'm just going to trim it off ahead of when I normally go to the table. And look, it fits nicely. Okay, covers all that. So now I'm going to put the hoop back on, and now we're going to tack down this piece of batting. Don't want to waste supplies. Okay, so now we're going to go over to the table and we're going to trim away the excess batting and also trim away the excess batting in the middle here. Okay, that's good. Now let's put the foot down, leave white thread up on top, and let's stitch out the placement line for the fabric. Nice, I love it how it moved it right to the point where I could see everything. Okay, so now I'm going to put down the fabric. Now this one, because I know it's a little bit longer, I want to try to center it so it has the same amount of space on the top as it does the bottom. I still can't tack it down because it won't touch the sides. it'll be centered over the placement line and we won't have any issues. So there's that. It'll just look nicer if it's got the same amount on one side as it does the other. I guess again, it's not rocket science. It's approximate. And as long as you're close, close is good enough. It doesn't have to be perfect. Done is better than perfect. I think Angela Walters said that, and it's always stuck with me. Done is better than perfect. Okay? And it's hard coming from me because I am a perfectionist as to, you know, letting myself be okay with it not being perfect. And that is a good place to be, where done is better than perfect. We're going to skip the tack down stitches again because the pieces are pretty well the right size to the placement line. So I'm going to skip these 3. So plus and minus needle. 1, 2, 3, skip. Now I'm at the quilting design. I can click OK. All right, we're making it work. All right, so this first one, I do want to quilt it in white. And I have white thread still on the top of the machine, so I'm going to do that. Then when I get to this block here, I'm going to stop the machine. And I'm going to put black thread, I think, in here because I want the banners of the print of the fabric to show. And I'll do this one in black as well. So white for my first one, and here we go. Okay, so now I'm going to put black thread in the top of the machine for these last 2 blocks. You got this. You're so close. You're doing a great job. Just stick with it. You could do it. All right, let's go ahead and now quilt the quilt stitches for both of these 2 blocks. You did it. All right, cool. Let's take the hoop off the machine. Let's take it over to the table and let's finish up these blocks. Okay, didn't they turn out cute? It turned out really nice. All right, let's take it out of the hoop. All right. It says, no, I don't want you to go. Okay, so now we're going to trim these up. And this is going to be a little bit different trimming than we normally do because we don't want to cut any of the fabric. We want to cut exactly on the stitch line so that these blocks do not get any smaller than they already are. So I'm just going to do one at a time. Doing it on this side is easier because I'm right-handed and I can see where the fabric is and where the stitch line is because I don't want to make the fabric any shorter. I'm just going to do this. I'm going to go ahead and take the tape off. And like I said, some of it gets stitched in. It's not a problem. You just tear the tape. And then I'm going to come back here. I'm going to get my seam ripper. And I'm going to tear the rest of that tape up. It's paper tape, so it literally will come right out of the stitches. All right, so let's go ahead and trim just one block at a time on the stitch line. Oops, close that up. So that you do not cut the fabric, you're just cutting the stabilizer away and making the blocks little tiny blocks. All right, and then we do here. Again, don't make the fabric smaller. just take away the stabilizer. So it needs to be something like that with the flags going up and down. That's what we want. Okay, so let me fast forward through these and let's trim the excess stabilizer around all of them and trim right on the stitch line. So we are good. See, the paper tape just comes out with either tweezers or your seam ripper. Look at what you did. Look at all these. That and the large block one. We've got this one, and then look at all these little guys. You did so good. Look at all these. Look at all these. Amazing, huh? You guys did them all. Woohoo! All right, so I measured these little guys that are 2.5 inch square, and they are now just shy of 2.5 inch square. I mean, about 1 millimeter shy from the quilting pulling in. So when we sew these together, we're going to do a scant 1/4 inch when we get to that stage, and I'll walk you through when we get there so that everything will fit. Everything will be fine. And like I said, it's just a tiny bit smaller. So if we do a scant 1/4 inch when we sew these together, we should be able to easily make up for that difference. So lesson learned for our future Kimberbell projects. If we're going to be doing border blocks and we see ahead of time that we're doing some sort of border block before we do the cutting, we want to make sure that we cut this fabric just a 1/2 inch bigger on all these pieces. Okay, there should be enough fabric if you're using the kit to do it at that time. So we'll just keep that in mind for future Kimberbell projects when we see border blocks that we would want to quilt with the same quilting stitches. But you guys did it. We made it work, and that was the most important thing. You just make it work. Doesn't have to be perfect. Done is better than perfect. Thank you, Angela Walters. All right, so I hope you had fun doing these border blocks. We learned a lot along the way as well. So I hope you come back for the next video where we're going to finish up and do the flying geese blocks of this project. And then we're almost done, guys. We are so close. So please subscribe to my channel. It helps me do what I do for you, and it's free for you. Also, when you're there, click the bell notifications. That way you're notified every time I upload a video. And click the like button because YouTube likes to see if people like the video. So I hope to see you here again next time on Jolly Molly TV, where we work on the flying geese blocks. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.